Hey, everybody. Welcome to Coach's Corner on this Wednesday night, the four-wheel drive show. That's right. Two members of the four-wheel drive are with us every Wednesday night. The other two, Timmy Green, Billy Pendock to my left, and our teammate, Timmy Green.
Hey!
And Kimmel. Jamie Kimmel is the other half of the four-wheel drive. Blaze winner, 11-year NFL vet down below. Two Syracuse teammates. Guys, thanks for joining the show today. This show is brought to you by Pensacola Glass, the clear choice for all your glass needs. And I'm gonna honor my two friends, Woody Waters, Pensacola Glass, just passed away last week, and Michael Johnson, a great friend of mine, and Angie's passed away a couple of weeks ago. So this show is dedicated to both those guys. Woody is a great man. And Michael is a great person he's a great coach too. Actually got a lot of guys into coaching, me included. So my heart is heavy for you two guys. But today's show, we're going to talk about like bad coaches, transactional coaches, okay, what they are. Joe Ehrmann from Syracuse, a Syracuse lacrosse player and Syracuse football player, actually wrote a book called Inside Out Coaching. It's a must read for anybody that's coaching. And we're going to talk about the 5 transactional coaches that he mentioned in the book. And we've all had these transactional coaches if we've played sports long enough, okay? Transactional coach is actually the kind of coach that uses his players as tools to meet his needs for validation, status, or identity. Transactional coach are self-centered, quid pro quo. I give you something, you give me something in return. It's a cold transaction. And Joe Ehrmann's book, I think Parade Magazine actually called him the most important coach in America at one time. And because he identifies, he played football and lacrosse in Syracuse. He was a first-round draft pick in football of the Baltimore Colts, played 12 years in the league. But he also played lacrosse at Syracuse for the great Roy Simmons. Now, his football coach was a typical transactional coach, okay? And we're going to get into what these transactional coaches are. The 5 of them are the dictators, the bullies, the narcissists, the saints, and the misfits. Now, he had a transactional coach, and the football team was not very good at Syracuse in those days in the 70s. Now, as opposed to playing lacrosse for Roy Simmons, who won like 6 or 8 national championships, he was a transformational coach. So Joe talks about the difference. And this is critically important because I was on Facebook the other day and I saw Coach Nick Saban talking to a new NFL head football coach. And by God, he's over there, and it's only a 5-minute talk or a 5-minute thing on Facebook, but he mentioned the difference between transformational coaches and transactional coaches, and my jaw just dropped. I'm like, wait a minute, that's our subject for Wednesday. I read this book years ago that Joe Ehrmann wrote, but actually about 15 years ago I read it, and it changed me. I was a better coach after I read Joe Ehrmann's book, because in realizing what these bad coaches do, the bully coach, he roars the players and associates, and he keeps them at a distance. The bully's coach's repertoire includes shouting, cursing, personal denigration, and humiliation. So the intimidating coach can be very difficult to approach or feel connected to. And I've had bosses and I've had coaches that were the same. Sometimes these coaches don't realize they're doing this, but the damage is done nonetheless. In order to become a transformational coach, the first thing you have to do to become a transformational coach, okay, is to look inside you, examine yourself, ask yourself the hard questions. Narcissists have no self-reflection, so there's no way a narcissist coach or a narcissist person can actually self-reflect, okay? You have to ask yourself the hard questions, like why do you coach? How do you coach? What does it feel like to be coached by you? And how do you measure and define success, okay? And that's where Joe talks about we all slip up. We all started. Actually, and so did Joe Ehrmann. We started coaching with some of those tendencies that we got when we were kids, and we'd slip up. I'm going to become a much better coach in the last year of my coaching than I was in the first. Okay, and Coach Ehrmann explained something interesting: how bully coaches manifest itself. He said Joe Ehrmann remembers as when he was a young coach that when a player or parent triggered part of me that had been bullied in the past, okay, the bully in me would rise up and rage as a bully coach. And as part of my inside out work, I am very mindful of this impulse. I'm happy to say that it rarely happens now. Man, I had to do the same thing. It takes courage to not only admit that these transactional moments occur, but you have to commit to this self-assessment and contemplation. Number 3 on our type of list is the narcissist. This is the type of coach who thinks all about himself. He's the life of the party. He can't take any credibility. He craves the center stage. He's the one that gloats on the sideline as the clock ticks down. He's proud of himself, not his players, but he has no empathy for others. This type of coach is rare, okay? But they're much more dangerous because they lack the ability to self-critique themselves, and he's unwilling to do the hard work. All right, so those are some of the first bad coaches that we'll talk about today. But isn't it interesting that Saban was talking about transformational and transactional coaches, the difference? Guys, we were talking about this before we came on the air. We have played for dozens and dozens of different coaches. Blaze, probably because he played longer than us, he probably played for more. But Blaze, you were a college coach at Central Florida. Billy, you coached. I coached for 20 years. There's a few coaches that I ran into that I just didn't get along with.
Go ahead, Billy. Start out if you would.
Yeah. The important thing to look at with this, when we're talking about this, we talk about bad coaches, and let's understand what we're really meaning by that. We're talking about, and we've all seen it, and I've seen it right from high school, right up through to playing in the pros, all the way through, as far as it's not so much that, we all have a relationship with our position coach, and then it goes up to our head coach. But when you think back and you think about how much that negativity or what values come down from that head coach to the position coach, then to the player, it separates a lot of people on the team. And there's a lot of characteristics that are positive and negative about certain coaches. Now we've all made mistakes as far as how we've coached our guys or how we've been coached. And the biggest thing I could see, as far as, going back to growing up and being coached by different levels of coaches, you can sense that problem between your assistant coach and your head coach. And we've all been there. And you look at the way the respect from your position coach, because we're spending a lot more time with our position coaches than our head coaches. And if that lack of respect is there, it funnels down to the guys, and it ends up separating a lot of guys on a team. And I know Blaze remembers a lot of this. I'm not naming, nobody's going to name names here, but there was a lot of separation. And when you have that separation and guys are not playing together as a unit, it shows on the scoreboard, and it shows on the film on Saturday or Sunday when you're watching film Sunday or Monday, But I mean, in my case, I tried to, let's all face it, you gotta gain respect from your players when you're coaching. Now, how do you get that respect? You could be really, really hard on the guys, or you can be their friend, either way. What they're doing nowadays, and I watch on the sidelines, and I go up to Syracuse a lot, is they're disciplining these kids, but in the same hand, they're hugging these kids. It's a bad good thing right away. But it changes with everywhere you go. What do you think, Blaze?
The where it starts for me is what is the head man doing in that staff room away from the players? What is he establishing with his staff that carries consistency out onto the field? There's nothing worse than to have a head man and a bunch of staff coaches that whisper about the head man because they're not on the same page. The great coaches I've been around, and I will name a name, Mark D'Antonio. The amount of cohesion and fluidity in that staff. I mean, the players are always being told the same thing. There was consistency. There was no whispering. There was no alarming concern over one man did not like the instruction from another. And I've been on a lot of staffs as a player and also as a coach where there's friction and there's not a clear understanding of what is important. I mean, when you're with O'Leary, there's one thing important. You win, baby. You win or else. And it's clear. So, yeah, I named a few names of two great coaches. But in that staff room, the great coaches lay it down in such a way that there's consistency in delivery out on the field with the players. And the players aren't wondering, who's the leader? Do we trust our coach? Do we follow his lead because he's saying something different than the other man is saying? And that can't be done or else the whole pyramid, believe it or not, collapses.
Yeah. That happens a lot in transition to coaches. When you keep coaches from one staff to another, that happens. I know Coach Bryant always had a close staff, and Coach Perkins not so much. There was a little bit of friction between the coaches and the head coach. You can't have coaches playing favorites. That causes division as well. Coaching bias. If a coach is biased over another coach or a player, that creates friction and cancerous.
There's only one boss. There's only everyone knew D'Antonio, Tressel. Those are the bosses, man. You're not questioning the boss. If you don't like what he's doing, tough. He is the boss. He's put in that position. And, as a being around young coaches also, sometimes they have a hard time with that. Sometimes they see multiple bosses, and that's not going to add up to successful player development. It just doesn't carry to the players. Now, you also have to remember the complexity of coaching is divided into a youth group, meaning high school, a college group, and a pro group, and that those levels are completely different on what you can get away with, with your players. I mean, the pros can't get away with pressing to the same degree a player as they do at college. Fran Brown is implementing, obviously, a yo-yo system. A little this, a little that, up and down. Love them, push them. Love them, push them. And then that hopefully that develops a better consistent player and a better person.
Right.
But it's really interesting to see that the complexity of coaching takes on so many different roles, depending on what age you're around and what your allowances are.
Well, it's about connection. Okay, let's start talking examples. And I'm not going to name any names because I live in this area. I coached in this area. So let's give some examples. For instance, I had this I had this former player of mine come over to my house. He coaches high school now. Okay. He played in college. He coached in college. He's having a hard time with his staff that he's working with because he pushes hard. He knows he came over to my house to talk about it. He pushes hard on his kids, but he also talks to them afterwards because he wants to get to know the kids and know how they tick. And that's what you're supposed to do as a coach. But the other coaches were like, "Oh, you're being friends with him. You're trying to hug him and be friends with him." And Alex is like, "Oops, I made a mistake. I wasn't going to say any words. I was going to say any name." But listen, he was like trying to get the guys to understand that they haven't been winning. Okay, it's not like they're going to the playoffs every year, so they're not getting the results. And this coach is trying to do the right things because he knows what good coaching is. He played on successful youth teams, high school and college teams. This guy did, okay? And he's getting a little frustrated over the other coaches that do not want to expand their horizon, learn how to be a good coach from other coaches, because that's how you actually get better. Okay, that's how I got better as a coach. I read books, I went to clinics, I called old coaches. I just was really into trying to be the best coach that I can. And some of these coaches are out there that just don't put in the effort, man, and they think that their way is the right way. Well, obviously, if you lose for 3 or 4 straight years, you got to change something. Okay, that's the definition of a psychosis, man, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So you need a staff that's all on the same page and that understands how to coach. And I think a lack of learning from other coaches is a problem in high school football.
Well, they better learn to read personality types because that's what football teams are made up of. I mean, Billy's a whole different animal than I am. We have to be the information has to be shared in certain ways. I'll give you a great example. I was a wreck. When I landed at Green Bay, I was an absolute wreck because I was desperate to hold on to my career. And a man came up to me, D-line coach, Greg Blash, great coach. And he knew my personality. And he simply said to me, "Will you stop beating yourself up?" And I'm like, "What?" I mean, I come from a system where Gunther Cunningham would beat you up in practice verbally. And I'm just naming names. May he rest in peace. He every one of these coaches made me a better person. Every one of them. Because I learned to know what to take and what to give away.
Right.
So for a person like Ray Blash, when he says to me, "Man, you got to stop beating yourself up, man. You got to go back to enjoying the game." And I'm like, "Well, I'm a pro." Well, pros need to enjoy the game. Don't you think we enjoy the game? You don't think I enjoy coaching? And I said, yeah, man. When you do me a favor, get back to enjoying the game and being the player you used to be. And if you do that, I guarantee you'll be very happy with yourself. Now, That's a simple message delivered at the right time. Right. At the right time, rather than I'm going to let somebody else say it. Great coaches know the importance of what, Billy? Timing. And, man, I can't tell you how his timing was spot on and his firmness was delivered with perfection.
Good story. Billy, let's tell some examples. I'm going to tell a bad example in a little while, but let's tell me whether a good coach or a bad coach. Tell me the difference made in your life.
Well, geez, Blaze had a great point there because, you think about 45 to 55 guys on a roster. You think about all the different personalities and the way things are changing now with the way kids are brought up and the way the expectations are now, that it's a very, very hard job to decide which way you're going to go. I mean, back when we were growing up, and I always go back to, what those years of, between 14, 15 years old and up to going into college, your baseline and your discipline level. And I always go back to that discipline level. And I don't look at it, and I was coached by a lot of real tough disciplinary coaches, and I don't look at it as bullying. I don't think it was bullying. I think it was trying to give you all the tools so you could go on in life and be either a good
Amen.
brother, a good father, maybe a good grandfather,
Amen.
maybe a leader of a company. And let's face it, when we talk about this stuff, we're talking about, even you look at the military, you look at all these organizations, look at a guy like, there's 100,000 autobiographies on a guy like Pat. And if you ever looked at the history of that general, when he went through that division, when he came up through and went against the tank division, and I mean, they called him Blood and Guts Pat for a reason. It wasn't like he wanted to put his arm around you and be your buddy. You might, to this day and age, they're going to call him a bully. He's a flat out bully. Now I call him a leader of men, and I call him a champion, and I call him a guy that persevered and got guys to fight with their lives in front of a guy like that.
Hey, don't you love Billy? Billy, don't you love coaches and Trip? Don't you love coaches that aren't afraid to lose their fucking job? Don't you love those coaches that aren't afraid to lose their job? They believe in impressing people, because great people that oppressed develop into incredible warriors. I mean, I get very emotional. But man, what you're talking about, a general like Patton, and you look at the great coaches I've been around, and I'm so glad they pressed me. I'm so glad they challenged me. I'm so glad they told me, if you don't do it right, we're sending your ass home. And I'm so glad, rather than it'll be all right, you can sit down and rest for a while until you feel like it. Holy shit, are we in a messed up situation now because of that? People afraid for their job. God damn, man.
But that's, that's where there's a very fine line there, because you go back years ago, those bullies, there was not bullying back then. That was hard disciplinary coaching. And I don't know about you guys, and I won't, and I'm not going to talk for anybody, but my upbringing and the way I was coached, the way I was parented, was what made me what I am today. Yeah. It's not about winning football games. It's not about, and again, I'm getting off the subject, and there's a lot of examples of, I mean, I don't like what this guy's doing. I didn't like what that guy's doing. Somebody else might have liked the same thing. So that dissension is what causes problems in the locker room, problems on the field, all that stuff. But
no, Billy, you're right. Billy, you're right about this fine line thing between the bully and the listen. My high school coach, and I had Josh Sitton ask me on my show, you had O'Leary, because he played for George O'Leary. You had O'Leary and Bear Bryant back to back. How did you survive that? And I think back, my high school George could be transactional at times, but he also could be transformational. And my college coach, Bear Bryant, he could be as tough as nails and transformational in the very same day. So it is a fine line, between bullying and being disciplinarian.
The thing is this too, Paulie. You take 100 kids and you put them in front of guys like you just spoke about. Maybe you talk about the Junction Boys. You talk about all this stuff that went on. And we went through it in high school. We went through it in college. And I've talked to probably 30 or 40 guys that I used to play in high school with or college that all quit and said, "You're nuts. You're out of your mind to play for guys like you played for." what are you kidding me? I mean, bully. You know, narcissist, bully, whatever name you want to put on it. Okay. I mean, I didn't go to prison. I mean, I had discipline coming out of high school and college because of a handful of coaches.
Yeah.
Now, you might call that bullying, and a lot of people will these days.
Yeah.
But I call it making a boy into a man, and that's what they did.
Right.
Yeah, and I'll add one other thing. I think when you're around great coaches, they know by looking out on the field what their general population is open to. O'Leary was, I'm not, I use him a lot because, hey, man, we were coached by him, and he's been a part of my life since I, was entered Syracuse. But anyway, O'Leary at Syracuse is a different apple than O'Leary at the Minnesota Vikings. O'Leary at Georgia Tech is a different apple than O'Leary at the Chargers. I mean, when O'Leary was, and this is the greatness of an individual as a coach, to be able to understand, hey, man, I'm around these young folks that are 18, 19, 20 years old. Now I'm around these 30-year-old men, and the delivery will be different. And it wasn't compromising himself. It was just simply, hey, I'm smart enough to know that I'm going to talk to Leslie O'Neal one way. I'm going to talk to Bert Grossman another way. I'm going to put Blaze Ritter in the middle to keep them both sane. And we're going to have the best defensive line in football in 1992 with the Chargers. And his delivery wasn't, hey, you better do it or else. His delivery was, hey, man, we got to be smart out here. Let's learn to work off each other. And that would have never been said to the freshman four-wheel drive. It might have been said to the freshman four-wheel drive when they were seniors. But it's really interesting to see coaches do what they do well, which is adapt and understand what they're looking at.
Yeah, but you got bad coaches that can't do that. That's the one. These are the coaches you have to look out for. Yeah, there are a lot of them are, the coach misfit and the coach, coach Messiah, the coach misfit and the coach Messiah. A lot of these coaches are found in youth leagues when there's not much, and background.
What do they do? They ride that one kid. Usually it's their son or daughter. They ride that one kid to victory and look at me, I'm a great coach.
Yeah.
How about the coaches we all coach with that when you're on a staff with guys that would not they would not listen to their assistant coaches?
Yes.
How about that?
Yes.
That's a huge thing. Think about, and I used to say this, you hired me on your staff,
right?
But yet you don't want to listen to what I have to say.
Exactly. The ego jumps in the way. That's part of the problem with the head coach. I'm not going to say names again, but I mean, I'm coaching high school, and I played for two of the greatest coaches that ever lived. I made it to the highest level and played in the pros for a few years, but they wouldn't listen to what I had to say. They wouldn't take my suggestions. And if they did, sometimes they took it years later and would claim it as their own. I mean, I don't understand why these coaches don't look inside themselves. And that's and the coaches, like, for instance, I was coaching this one place and my son was playing for me. And I don't know if you ever coached your sons or not, but I was kind of harder on my son than I was anybody else, okay, because I didn't want that perception. Well, one time he was playing defensive end and the tackle just wrapped him up. And I went over to the tackle after the play and I said, buddy, listen, man, you can't do that. That's holding. They'll call that in the game. Well, the offensive line coach saw what I said, heard what I said to his old lineman, and he said, oh, you're just saying that because it was your son. Oh my gosh, oh boy, if you know me, hey, I can be warm and tender, but you cross me like that and I'll bite your head off. I was gonna tear his head off, Blaze. The head coach had to step in. The head coach had to step in. You know, but those are, you know, why would you say something like that? Why would assistant coaches even approach, you know, that kind of statement?
No, we're talking about. I've mentioned this before. We're talking about ego. Okay, coaches with these ego problems, and I've said this before. I think on the air. I've had a gym. I've trained kids here. Blaze knows I got a gym here. I've trained almost probably close to between 800 and 1,000 kids went through my gym.
Yep.
You know how many? And I graduated from Liverpool, and it's 20 minutes away from my house.
Yeah.
I have had to this day not one Liverpool kid go through my gym, and I've went to the school numerous times and tried to talk to the coaches, and they barely said we can do our own thing, and we can do it. You know, what is the
Hey, Billy, you're not alone, man. Tapazee High School did the same thing to me, and they wouldn't let me in until I got on my knees and said, "Please let me in." I haven't heard from one coach, one player, and I've offered myself for zero. They all think you want a lot of money. I said, I'll come here for nothing to be a part of my history.
What is the answer? What is the problem, and what is the what is it? What is it?
It's ego. They can't, you know, they think they know everything. That's the bottom line. Ego destroys the humility of person.
Set in their ways, also and these are comfort
That is their ways. Right.
I think the other thing, the third thing is winning. If you win a lot, you have a tendency to say, I'm going to keep on doing it this way. And there's a need for coaches to adapt.
See, that's the biggest thing I have a problem with. When Paulie and I left Liverpool, we won a state championship. You know how many state titles they've had since then? Zero. Yeah. And they're the third biggest high school in New York State.
It is so sad, man, that you're not invited there daily. You're 20 minutes down the road.
I know.
Think about this, Paulie. Think about Blaze. Think about you've had Pete Hallahan come out of here. You've had Paul Tripoli, Bill Pendock, Tim Green, Gedney. You've had, I could go on, Mark Merrill. I could go on for an hour with all Americans that came out of Liverpool. You know how many guys they asked back? Nothing. Zero.
Wow.
These coaches are zeros. That's what they are.
Man, this is a great show. We could go on and on, but man, I think we got our point across that there are good coaches, there are bad coaches. You have to recognize what the difference is. There's each of these coaches will show you signs. You know, it's sad that some of these coaches are like that, but you know, it's all about really self-reflection. I think now it's time for Bible verse of the week, brought to you by the Seiler Agency. This comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5, folks. Quote, "Examine yourself to see whether you are in the faith. Test yourselves." Okay, now let me read this one thing. I read an article in SI about 15 years ago about Doug Baldwin, this local kid from here in Gulf Breeze that went to Stanford. He was 5'8", 170 pounds, and he played like 8 or 10 years for the Seahawks. He won a Super Bowl. Okay, he said this. He emerged as an elite player. He said it was all it was all because of personal growth and reflection. He said on his mistakes, Dougie Baldwin is quoted as saying, "Self-awareness was my engine," unquote.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
See, a lot of people don't get that. You know, I mean, people don't understand that why, you know, you can be a better coach, and these are the things you have to do, and you have to study it, practice it, and learn it from other people. Guys, we could go on. Thanks for a great show.
Good show, man.
Great show about bad coaches. We talked about good coaches.
Billy made some great points, Trip. Great point. It's a great subject. Great
subject.
Yeah,
you guys, man.
Thanks, guys. 4-wheel drive. Live on forever.
Stay healthy. God God bless you guys. Stay healthy.
Stay healthy. Yeah, stay healthy.
Oh, we have an alarm. See
We all got our health.
you guys.
Hey, we'll talk about
All right, bye-bye,
we'll
Ben.
talk about that. Maybe we won't. But see you guys. Wow, what a great show, those guys, man. Hey, we're all battling health issues. We even talk about it, but hey, man, pray for Billy and Blaze and myself, as I think I've got 7 surgeries this year, something like that. I don't know. All right, have a great sports week, everybody. We will talk to you soon. So long. Thanks for watching the show. Share it, like it, and have a good one. Bye. Oops. Oh, gosh. Can't forget my commercials, my Nailudiology.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
75 years of service in high tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than a simple pane of brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
That's you trying to fix the plumbing yourself to save a few bucks. Doing things yourself doesn't always end well. The same goes for insurance. That's why Auto Owners works with local independent agents who tailor coverage to meet your needs and offer discounts for life, home, car, and business insurance. Because sometimes you need a professional to get the job done right. That's simple human sense.
My name is Steve Reynolds. I'm the manager and owner of Cordova Lanes, and we help keep your mind out of the gutter. Cordova Lanes is part of the community of Pensacola. Being here for 43 years, we've entertained more people than any other bowling center in the city. We self-fund for a living. Cordova Lanes is located at 2111 Airport Boulevard in Pensacola, behind Cordova Mall. Come on out and see us at Cordova Lanes Bowling Center. Thank you.